Good evening. I can sense a hush coming down, so I thought I'd be bold and start to speak. So I'd just like to briefly welcome you all to this public lecture. We have our conference participants here, but also others who are joining us, and you're most welcome, anyone who's joining us for this public aspect to our World International Franciscan Conference here in Durham. Our speaker this evening will be known to many of you by name, if not by face. Father Casey Cole is a Franciscan friar from Lancaster, and that's Pennsylvania. And I'm not always sure what PA means. I didn't find that out right. So he entered the Franciscan order in 2011 and was solemnly professed in 2017, ordained in 2019. As many of you will know, for the past 6 years, he's worked in a number of ministries, chaplain to universities, high schools, and elementary schools. He's traveled extensively through the United States, offering talks and lectures. And he's known perhaps best for his online presence, producing videos on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And he's also the author of 3 books, so a very accomplished young friar. And we're very glad that he's joining us and sharing with us his extensive experience in the online world. And so I'm going to hand over to Casey now. There will be an opportunity for some questions at the end of this talk. I'd ask you to welcome Casey Cole.
Well, thank you all for coming out after dinner in the rain. After a very long day, you're all saints or obsessed or you lost a bet. I don't know. You get to choose. But it's wonderful to have you all here. The talk tonight is Healing Wounds, a Franciscan Mission in a World Misshaped by Screens. And I think I know a lot about screens. I've had a lot of time on them. I think I have some things that I can share, but I'm also by no means an expert on all things here. And so there are certain things that I just won't be able to talk about, some things I will not be able to answer fully, but I hope to offer a bit of the landscape of what we're facing online and maybe what we can do as just a cursory or introductory suggestion for where to go. I have way too many slides than I need here. I'm going to make sure I cut off at a time and not necessarily when I'm finished with the slides. So I reserve the right to stop when there are 30 slides left. I'm sorry, you may just not get to see them. But we start by looking at what is the state of the world right now. The internet is a wild place. If you've ever heard of it, it can be a bit strange. It can be a bit exciting. And so what we can see is, first of all, it is a connected place. You can connect with people all around the world instantaneously. How amazing it is that I talk to my parents however many thousands of miles away today. How amazing it is that we can just send messages and it transmits immediately. This was not the case 2,000 years ago. St. Paul had to walk. He had to get on a boat. And the man did incredible stuff, and we are indebted to the work he did. But he met hundreds, thousands of people in a couple years. He worked extremely hard and did as much as he could, but there was a limit to what he could do. We know, of course, our Franciscan brothers went probably farther. They went all throughout Europe in just the first few decades. And they also had to walk, but they met hundreds, thousands of people with all of their work. In our world today, even if you just work at a parish, not that it's just a parish, but a parish here, my first assignment, I had 2 to 4 masses on a weekend, could maybe reach a couple thousand people. I didn't have to leave. I didn't have to do anything. Incredible. Same as St. Paul in some ways. 1,000 people. And then you open up your phone. And I realized that I can just make a stupid little video, 30 seconds long, and reach between 20 and 500,000 people just like that. I've had videos over 1 million, just a single video, for some stupid thing that I filmed on my phone with really no technical skills. YouTube, even crazier. In my 11 years doing this, I have reached 65 million people, or have 65 million views across the world. Only 52% are from the United States. Between 48% are in many other countries, connecting with hundreds of countries, really. I think just about every country that has the internet has been represented at some point. This is immense power and an immense ability to reach people. But we also know that the internet is a place of outrage. This is a place that not only is where we dump our outrage, but sometimes is the cause of it. Now, don't take this too seriously. I don't stand by whatever. This is just a graphic I found. Some organization put this out, illustrative of a narrative that we know. We are moving towards more polarization. We are struggling to connect, and we are struggling to overcome our differences. And in some ways, the internet is a cesspool of this. One of my favorite tweets of all time. If you said the sky is blue on Twitter, someone would quote tweet it saying, "This idiot's never heard of nighttime." Sometimes, no matter what you say, there's going to be someone who criticizes you. You can say everything right and do your absolute best, and you're still going to find yourself in division. Some of my favorites. These are about me. Fake Christian, you don't deserve to call yourself a priest. For lack of a better term, I find him pretty cringe. After listening to his video in which he says that the virtue of chastity is old-fashioned, I lost respect for him. Just to clarify, I never said that. I've never come anywhere close to saying that. I kind of like chastity. The closest I think I've ever come to this is saying that purity is not the only thing that matters, that we need a fullness of holiness, that if we stop at purity, we've limited ourselves. That I said purity but that got interpreted probably as I think chastity is old-fashioned. But unfortunately, I lost respect. Unadulterated, God's insulting, phony, and stupid sophistry, not to mention his hypocritical sense of charity. How fun for me. He's not wrong, but man, is he annoying. I'm fairly sure my sister wrote that. We've said that many times. But this is what we get sometimes from the comments, but it's also what we get from Catholic creators. We probably saw this video a number of years ago. Talk about divisive. Priest at the time, you cannot be Catholic and a Democrat, period. The condemnatory, the judgment, the drawing a line in the sand to say, you are right and you are wrong and I get to choose. How often we see this on the internet, this judgment, this condemnation. There are people that can be very good at what they do. And you probably are familiar with Trent Horn. He's someone that is a great apologist and offers great answers to theological questions, but also can get stuck sometimes. This is just his last 6 videos I checked today. 5 of them are condemning someone or criticizing someone or looking down on someone. And he may very well be right. That's not the point. And the point is not to say he's right or wrong, but what does this do when this is your entire ministry? When it is always about pointing out what someone did wrong, putting them down, rather than saying, maybe can I understand them? Or maybe can I learn from them? Maybe can I dialogue with them? I'll get back to that in just a second. Because sometimes it's not just the criticism, which, as we saw in our theological papers, is a fine mode of doing things. You can, of course, say, someone wrote this and I'd like to disagree with them. Nothing wrong with that in itself. But what it often leads to is things like this. These personal attacks, these attacks on a human being, these things that are just meant to dehumanize, just meant to put people down. There's nothing that benefits from this. There's no growth in the church because of videos like this. Now, this is not Trent Horn, just to be clear, but we see these things all around where the internet likes outrage. It likes the vitriol. And of course, we know, maybe you do know, maybe you don't. I've experienced some of this from the same people. And it's frustrating because in both of these videos, I didn't necessarily even say something wrong. But what came of this was a lack of reputation, and more so, people believe that we are fighting against each other. I emailed both of them afterwards, and Trent thankfully did respond. We've had some good conversations, and he said that he was sorry that it was taken so negatively, that really he was just trying to progress the conversation, never meant to attack me. But the reality is I got calls at my school to get fired because of this video, in which he actually told me, I didn't think you were that wrong. This is what can happen when we play with a loaded gun. This is what happens when we put things out on the internet and we present ourselves as divisive, as against each other. What will they think of us, those people who are not Christians? And so there's outrage. On the other hand, the church is booming because of the internet. The internet is doing such wonderful things all around the world. And we've seen this over the last couple of years, that the church's biggest entry point right now is social media. The brothers that are with me here from Charlotte, we meet a lot of people that are entering the church. And one of the things they always say is, I found the church on the internet. It's amazing to me that that was their first entry point, and they'll list one person or a few people that they met because of the internet. This is an opportunity for us. I found this article just recently. Surge in adults entering church in England this Easter prompted by internet and tradition. We look throughout these articles over the last 2 years, the amount of people entering OCIA is hopeful. There's a great excitement to this. And the internet has a place to play in this. It has created, for better or for worse, a bit of a celebrity culture where young Catholics in particular, are excited to be Catholic. They have people like Father Mike Schmitz who fill up arenas, people wanting to see him talk about church. Again, like him or not like him, that's exciting. There's a fervor among young people for the people they see online. Things like The Chosen, people like Katie McGrady. These people give excitement to young people to say, look, you don't have to be ashamed about your faith. Look, you can be joyful about this. The brothers went to the Sikh conference this year over in Ohio. 15,000 young people just excited to be there and all knew all of the internet personalities and they played a role in their faith. There's a sense of booming here. And we see on the internet, if you just look for convert to Catholicism or convert to the faith, how many popular people are doing this and sharing this. They're using it as an opportunity to invite other people to join the faith today. How wonderful. The church is booming. But also we know, of course, we're addicted. How many people were on their phone for more than an hour today? Don't raise your hand. We know that it's difficult. We know that it's so addicting. We scroll and we scroll and we scroll because there's so many good things. But what is that doing to us? We know that it's creating mental health issues. We know from Jonathan Haidt's book, Anxious Generation, that it is really causing a problem in young people, particularly young girls. The sense of self-esteem, the sense of communication, the sense of connection. It's so artificial, and then we are left with anxiety issues. We're left with depression. We're left with an inability to actually have human interactions. It is driving many concerns, and it is not a small concern. This is not mine, just so we're clear, but this is not abnormal. 9 hours of screen time a day. This person that online, 25 hours of social media that week. We can laugh at that, but I've been close to some weeks, I'm sure. And we know that we're not too far off sometimes. The amount that we look, the amount that we're always seeking that next high. And finally, we look at this state of the world we know artificial. And this can mean a number of things. It can mean the influencers. This person got caught. They were taking this picture on a plane. Turns out it was just a set. And you can rent a set to make yourself look like a real fancy influencer. And I think this is pretty well known, all the things you can do with makeup and lighting, all the things you make your life look so glamorous. But then sometimes people go and they do a good deed just for the camera. And this person got caught leaving the trash on the beach. But they made a great video about it. And I think unless we look at these people with great maybe condemnation ourselves, I think about myself today. I was walking around, I had a few minutes in between the conferences, and I went into that beautiful chapel. And I started taking pictures, and I'm like, oh, I'll share this, and I took the angles, all that. And then I walked away. And I thought, I just used that chapel for social media, and I didn't even pray. And so I turned around and I walked back in and I sat down. Because I don't want that church to be something that I just claim. Oh, look how holy I am. Look, I go to this church. But it doesn't actually come from who I am. And so there can be this artificial nature sometimes to who we are, and it's an easy tendency to sneak into. Of course, the other side of this is artificial intelligence. One of these two is real, and one of them is fake. And that is alarming. It's getting really, really good. And you can look, I don't know which one's which, but it's becoming concerning. Both of my parents sent me an AI video this week. Both of them, not realizing it was AI. This is becoming more and more a problem of what is real and what is not. The first memory I have of this, you may remember this picture. And the fact is, I didn't think anything of it. It seemed like a weird decision to me, but it didn't challenge my worldview, so I just kept scrolling. And it wasn't until a day later, I realized, oh, that was fake. But how easy it is, unless it's super obvious, we just accept it and we don't think too critically. We just move on. And it's leading to things like this that are extremely manipulative. My parents get these things on Facebook, these sad stories, donate to this thing, and clearly they are fake. And I think even worse was something that happened just a few weeks ago. Everyone was claiming that Netanyahu had died. And so he made this video of him in a coffee shop, and everyone in the comments said it's fake. And they started picking out, look at this finger, look at that, look at this. Everyone was convinced it was fake. And it took just a simple search to say there's another camera angle. And the place that he was at and got the coffee showed a picture of him buying the coffee. But it erodes that trust. It doesn't allow us to believe what we're seeing anymore even when it is free, it is true. And so if this is our world, what do we do? What do we do as Franciscans? Do we just pick up the camera? Do we get on our phone and we start making things? Well, I think that there's a number of things we could do. We could choose to check out. We could choose to say, this is an absolute mess and I want nothing to do with it. And I can tell you this is very tempting at times, especially when some of that vitriol comes in. I don't want anything to do with it. 2 years ago, I took a 2-month break from social media. Not only did I not create anything, I didn't think about creating anything, and I didn't even open any social media apps. I didn't create or consume, and I was really happy. I felt a freedom that I had not felt in probably 8-9 years. Because there is a constant need to produce. There is a constant worry of what people are thinking about you. There is that weight on you. And maybe we're just not meant for that. Maybe we'd be better off just stepping back. But then the problems wouldn't be fixed. Sometimes we can just choose to double down. Forget about all this holding hands, finding the time to reconcile. What if we just speak louder, speak stronger, call out those terrible people in an attempt to destroy them? I can tell you this is very tempting as well, too. How much better would it be if I could just defeat my enemies? But then again, I don't think we'd be lifting up the church if we did so. We might even undermine who we are. There's always the sellout option. Say, yeah, it's not great. It's not perfect, but we can make a lot of money. We could get a lot of followers. Let's just use this tool for our own benefit. Kind of the corporate model. Let's be safe. Let's just use everything to our disposal, and let's not worry about any of the consequences. Leaves us successful, maybe in a worldly sense, but probably also feeling a little hollow. And so I wonder, is there a fourth option? Is there something different? Is there a Franciscan approach to what it means to be a healer online, to be an evangelist, to be someone who speaks the truth with love? And of course, St. Francis doesn't have a manual. Of course, even talking about Franciscan theology is a wide net. There are many different perspectives on this. And so I don't have necessarily anything that is entirely concrete or anything that I think is absolutely the only way to do it. But I do think that there are some values that we can look to that might be able to guide us. And to do this, I'd like to borrow from a popular speaker. You might have heard of Simon Sinek. He's written a lot for businesses, and he coined this idea of the golden circle. And what he said was that a lot of businesses where they fail is they start with what, they move to how, and eventually maybe they'll get to why, but they're not sure. So Kodak would be an example of this. Kodak says, what do? We make film. We make pictures. Great. And maybe we'll do it really well. That's how we'll do it. Why do we do it? Well, we want to make money, or we want to give memories, or whatever it might be. But ultimately, what we do is make pictures. And when the digital camera comes around, well, we don't do that anymore. We don't know what to do. And so you lose this sense of identity. Compare that to Apple. Apple makes lots of things, but really what Apple sells you is a status symbol. What Apple sells you is a sense that we do things differently. And if you have an Apple, you're cool, or you're connected, or you're something special. And the way we'll do this, the how, is we'll have high quality things that are sleek, that are always connectable to everything. And so what do we make? Who cares? You're going to buy it. If Apple made a toothbrush, you would buy it. Apple made appliances, you would buy it. Because you're not buying what they do, you're buying why they do it. You're buying the benefit that comes along with that brand. And I think thinking of it that way, we should work from the inside out. Rather than asking the question, what do we do? Let's make sure that we lay that foundation of why we do it. And so over the next 20 or so minutes, I'd like to just go through the why, the how, and then maybe there's time for the what. We'll see. So why? What are our core values? Just 3 things, I think. Well, 3 things on this, one thing on this slide, and there's 3 slides. So I think there's truth, goodness, and beauty. There's a transcendental. So we look at St. Francis, what did he see? He saw beauty in everything. He saw goodness in everything. I think this foundational thing for us as Franciscans is the goodness of God all around us. We know, of course, of the Canticle of Creatures. We know that God was able to be seen by Francis in the beauty of creation and maybe not so beauty of creation. We know that even Sister Death was a way for him to be seen. And so with those eyes to recognize that God is all around us, we maybe have a different approach than many of the world does. This sense that there's goodness, truth, and beauty everywhere, and not just in creation, but in the people. How incredible it is, pinnacle for us as Christians, not just Franciscans, that every human being is created in the image and likeness of God. That there's an inalienable human dignity to every single person. There's nothing you could ever do to take that away. What a controversial stance that we have, that even our enemies are worth defending. Even those who hurt us are worth defending and are worth love. They may be difficult, but they are worth something because they are creations of God. And I think that has to be at the foundation of everything that we do, remembering that human dignity. Of course, you can't talk about Francis without talking about his imitation of Jesus. He was a man that loved Jesus and wanted to do everything that Jesus did. And we can see so many examples of this, the way he lived poverty, the way that he had obedience to Father, sending out 2 by 2, care for the poor. Even to the point of receiving the stigmata, there was this sense of a physical imitation of who Jesus was. He wanted to be that example of Christ, and he was that alter Christus. But I think beyond all those individual things, we might pick one thing out in particular about Jesus was his humility, his kenosis, his service, his self-sacrifice. God did love the world so much that he gave his only son, that Jesus laid his life down himself so that he could pick it up again. This was a God that did not come to attack his enemies, did not come to condemn the world, but rather came to love the world in self-sacrifice. We believe that Francis definitely epitomized this. But also a sense of prophetic witness. Jesus came as the Word. He did not come with a message, but was the message himself, in the way that he lived, in the way that he loved, in the way that he served other people. And he gave hope to the poor, a call to conversion, and life in despair. There was something transformative about him. There was simply prophetic about what he said. We know that Francis was the same way as well, that call to conversion, that call to go back to God. Jesus is the one that we must follow. And finally, with these whys, this foundation, that need for conversion. For us, it can be that conversion from sin, a conversion from jealousy, anxiety, despair, that self-reflection, as Francis was always one to do, going away, seeing himself as a sinner, seeing himself as unworthy of the love that he received, but knowing that God gave him that opportunity to turn back, knowing that opportunity to turn to God and be a new person, be a renewed person, that in Christ he might have life. And so we start there for us in our own humility, our own call to go back to say we are not better than other people, but in fact, we all have our work to do. And from there, might we call the world to conversion? Might we be able to look and say, yes, God loves you, but he's not super pleased with what you're doing. And I say this not as someone above you, but someone who is walking with you, a sinner. To be a Franciscan, I think, is someone to challenge the world to goodness, to justice, to live in a way that is more in accordance with who Jesus was. And so very simply, just a reminder here, why we do this is not to be popular. It's not to progress a political agenda. It's not to make money. I know it sounds really obvious, but these things are really tempting. And we ultimately start to lean towards them unless we write them down and say, no, I do not want those things. I want to focus on spreading goodness. I want to focus on leading people to salvation. I want to focus on healing the world. This is the foundation of everything that we do. And all those other things do not matter. What good is it to gain the whole world if we lose our souls? What good is it to be the most popular person on YouTube if we don't achieve God's mission? And so this is our why. This is the foundation of everything we want to do. And so the meat of it is how? How do we get there? What sorts of things should we be keeping in mind to do this? I was a part of a committee for the Order of Friars Minor last year that just produced a document, Guidelines for Presence in Digital Media. And my portion that I contributed was chapter 2, in which I talked about the difference between a digital evangelist and a Catholic celebrity. Just a simple little comparative model here, a little table to ask yourself, am I on this side or am I on this side? And I can tell you I wrote this because I've experienced all of these things. I have been on both sides of that. There are times where I have made a mistake and learned that this is not what we want to do. We don't exactly have time, nor do I think it'd be fruitful to go through every single one of them, but I picked out 5 that I think that we can focus on here for how do we get to those 3 things that make us a why. The first is that we want to be authentic. We want a people that are not performative, not trying to do something to be seen, but rather our life flows from the people that we are. very much my example of going to the chapel. I want to be the one who prays there and maybe shares about the prayer, but doesn't just take a picture and pretends that I'm praying. Because we know that the internet is a very fake place. It's a very performative place. This is something that we see all the time. These are influencers, what they look like with the camera on, the light on, and the makeup on. And here's what they look like in real life. Those fake standards. And again, it's so easy to look at them and to put them down and say, look what you're doing. But am I not doing the same thing sometimes? This was a video I made. This was a thumbnail where I had to look at my life and say, am I being authentic to who I say I am? I say lots of lofty things about the Franciscans and who I want to be, but does my appearance, does my disposition, does my lifestyle reflect who I present myself to be? It's a call to conversion first and foremost, to say, I need to be the person that I want other people to be before I ask them to be it. We can say that this starts from a personal place of prayer and integrity. Preach with your deeds, we see in the earlier rule. Are we sharing what we do, or are we simply trying to appear like we are doing something great? Do our deeds lead first, or do our lips, do our desire to be seen? And sometimes this means we got to add a little personality. This was a video I made a few years ago in which I allowed my parents to interview me. And I interviewed them back, and they shared some embarrassing things. And it was very candid, and I like to be very scripted, and this was not scripted. And so I think sometimes you need that personality. You need to let your hair down. You need to show, this is who I am, not the teleprompter, not the perfect hair, not everything set up perfectly, but yeah, I'm human as well. And I think people crave this authenticity. When I was in the high school, I used to give talks every Thursday. I was given 15 minutes to tell anything I wanted to the school, a little sermon. And the one day I failed miserably. I forgot where I was going. I stumbled. It was just a mess. And afterwards, one of the students came up to me and said, Father, I really liked your Thursday thoughts today. I usually don't, but today was great. Didn't have to say the second part. And thinking about it, it really just was that humanity, that's being able to show, yeah, we make mistakes sometimes. Yeah, not everything's perfect, but we make it through. Sometimes we're turned off by the person that's always perfect and always has the right thing to say and always looks great. And sometimes as religious, we shouldn't put always our best foot forward. We should just put our normal foot forward and let people see that. Sometimes it means being vulnerable, sharing our heartbreak and our disappointment. I shared a video a number of years ago of my disappointment of the allegations that came out about John Bonnier and how important he was for me as a spiritual writer, how he shaped my life in novitiate, truly, and how devastated I was, truly grappling with what do I do with this information? Now, I could have just skipped over it. I could have just hid from that. But I think it's important that people see that we don't always have things figured out. And in fact, we're angry at the church sometimes. We're angry at the ministers. We're angry at those representatives. To be able to open up a little bit to let people know it's okay to feel these things. Of course, it means sometimes being humble. I made a video that did not go well a couple years ago and had everything to do with the thumbnail and title. I made a video called Abortion is Not That Important. And the thing that people read was, it's not that important. But that's not what I was saying. I was saying that no issue is more important than your soul. And I was talking about how politics get in the way sometimes of being a disciple. And we sell ourselves out and we do anything possible to achieve an end. And in the video, I actually talked about a lot of different political issues. It did not go well. And I realized that that thumbnail and that title was probably a mistake because it wasn't going to reach the people I needed to reach. And so I made a video a week later explaining my experience, explaining why I would do things differently and apologizing. Yeah, probably wasn't my best choice. And I'm sorry for the people that may have misinterpreted it. Sometimes we just have to say it. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. We do from time to time. But to just move on and to say, oh, haters gonna hate, doesn't help us. I would say with this personality to use your experience, but don't make it about you necessarily. We see testimonies are really important. People love to have personal encounters. I think it's great to tell stories from 2,000 years ago, but it's even better to say how those stories are alive today. People want to know that God is continuing to work, and so we need to share from our personal experience. It can be a little uncomfortable sometimes. And it's why in almost every one of my YouTube videos, you will see in the thumbnail my face. I don't love seeing my face all the time, but it's just been proven people want to see faces. And I've tried tests where I put a video without my face and a video with my face. Everything else is the same, and people watch the one with the face more. Sometimes we just got to be willing to put our face on things. Sometimes we got to willing to put ourselves in there and say, here's how it affects me. Put it through our own personal experience. And so we want to be authentic, but we also want to be reconciling, of course, and not divisive. We've talked at length already that the world is very divisive. Unfortunately, we know that anger wins elections, not love. People are much more willing to vote if they are angry at the opposing candidate than if they love their own candidate. And so people play on this. I had mentioned Trent Horn before, who generally does good things, but he can get caught in this sometimes. This is Dr. Taylor Marshall, some of you may know. Many years ago, he used to make videos, 7 Reasons to Love Thomas Aquinas. He used to make videos on how to pray the rosary, very devotional things, very basic, theologically uplifting things. One of his most famous videos he put out in the last month was, why did Vigano call out George Soros, Klaus Schwab, and Bill Gates, all with devil antlers on them, horns? One is going to get you a lot more clicks, right? But it's also not going to be very reconciling. It's going to be very divisive. How can I point the finger? How can I get angry at someone? And we see this temptation to go after those clicks, to go after those things that will inflame and get a response. I'd say we should not do this. And we should not cover ourselves by just saying, well, I was right. I said the truth. Because it's not enough to simply be right. I think we can learn from Pope St. Paul VI, who said, modern man listens much more willingly to witnesses than to teachers. And I think that this is so true. I think it's so important to remember that truth is important, but we're finding that people are convinced less by what we say and more how we treat them. Do they see us as someone who can be trusted? Do we see them as someone on our side? This is how we're going to connect with people. And so if this is the case, we can just push people on the other side. That's effective. Or we can try to get on their side. And that doesn't necessarily mean changing everything about us, but it means trying to speak in a way that they will understand. And but more importantly, speak in a way that they will trust us. And so check your tone. Check the way that you are speaking. I think it's an important reminder that everyone is the body of Christ, or everyone that you're encountering in a Christian context is a part of that body of Christ, and everyone is a creation of God. I think it's so easy to forget this sometimes when it's someone from that political party, or that church, or that city, or that sports team, how easy it is to put down. But for the most part, everyone commenting is going to be somewhere on our side. And in fact, everyone is a part of the human family with us. And so before I try to put them down, I remember that's my brother or that's my sister. I also like to remember Hanlon's razor. Never attribute to malice that which could adequately be explained by stupidity. It may sound flippant, but I think it's so true, and I experience this all the time on the internet. How many times people have left what seem to be very angry comments, very heinous comments, very whatever comments, only to find out when I asked for clarification that English is not their first language, or only to find out that they're just bad writers. And I've found so many misunderstandings, so many just miswritings that weren't meant for anything, weren't meant to hurt. And so maybe we could give people the benefit of the doubt just a touch more. I know there are bots. I know there are bad actors that are not entering into conversations with good faith, but maybe just an extra inch, maybe just starting off and saying, I'm going to give you one more try. I think it's very quick to judge and very quick to dismiss. But if we give that one step, maybe we'll get to the next step, which is to consider how we're thinking about the other person. So often, I think sometimes it's subliminal judgment. It's maybe condescension. Oh, I got to go talk to those people. Oh, bless your hearts. Let me explain it to you. And maybe we don't use that exact tone, but maybe there's something subconscious in us that says, these people. I can tell you, you might be a good actor, but no one is perfect at hiding these things. And if we harbor those things, I think there will be some transference. I think there will be some projection. It will find its way out in the way that we talk, in the way that we write, in the way that we communicate. And if people feel even an ounce of that, they are going to be turned away. And so check ourselves and go back to step one. Do I see them as a brother or sister in Christ? Do I see them as someone worth my attention and dignity? And how do I treat them? How do I think about them? Do I give them the benefit of the doubt? And so we don't want to be divisive. We want to be reconciling. Of course, it's important to remember heavenly goals. Go back to that why a little bit, but make them more specific. What do we actually want here? It's not followers. How many videos are like this? You can become much more popular. You can get much more money, do all these things. And we can chase those things. We can chase those best practices to be more popular. It's not even to be successful in short-sighted things. How much I'd love to slap a heretic sometimes. How much I'd love to put someone down for being wrong. It might make me feel good for a second, but is that really the goal? Yes, truth matters, but ultimately the goal is reconciliation. Ultimately, the goal is salvation. That's what we said our why was. We want to bring people to Christ. And so the slap in the face, the punch of the heretic is not what we want to chase. I think it's important to remember, it's not about winning an argument, it's about changing hearts. And this may sound pie in the sky, this may sound impossible, and maybe it is, but that's still the goal. And we have to ask this, when we make our videos, am I trying to change a heart? Or am I trying to win an argument? And maybe the argument can't be won right now. So maybe it's an opportunity to have just a little humility. Maybe it's an opportunity to plant a seed. Maybe it's an opportunity to say, it's not about what we're even arguing about. And I'm not even supposed to sell the theology. Maybe I need to sell myself. Maybe I need to sell them on this relationship and give it another try. Maybe I just need to get on their side. It's working on changing hearts. And I think this can go in two different directions. We want to comfort the afflicted, but we also want to afflict the comfortable. There's a prophetic nature to this, going to those who need that message of hope, for sure. I think sometimes you just got to encourage. On the one hand, people are beaten down, especially in certain countries where they truly are persecuted. Can we be that voice of hope that says, there's something to love here. There's something good. The faithful need to be shown sometimes that this life is worth living. There are good things. Don't just turn on whatever news channel you watch. Turn on the Bible. Turn on Jesus. Turn on this wonderful church that we have. Give people hope. Even when we talk about difficult things, there are times that I might be a little critical, where I might point out something that isn't the way it would like to be in my mind. But can we frame it in a sense, but we can do something about it? Or do we leave it as, this sucks and I hate it and there's nothing that can be done? Where does that leave people? No, we want to leave them with hope. We can do something, you and me. And similarly, sometimes even these difficult issues, again, Cardinal McCarrick broke my heart for a very different reason, really made me quite angry. Do we speak with condemnation, or do we try to preach to the heart? Do we try to find what is in people's struggles right now and try to comfort, show them that there is hope, even if we are not in control of it? On the other hand, we can speak affliction to the comfortable. Sometimes there are real social justice issues. At the time, this video lost me more subscribers than any other video because I asked people to look seriously at themselves and say, might I have some racist tendencies? Am I truly perfect? Am I working for racial justice? One person called the bishop on me and told me I should have my faculties removed because I offended him. It happens. But are we willing to make that sacrifice sometimes, take that risk to say something that's difficult, to really stir up the people that are in our faith? Maybe sometimes it's the choir that needs to be preached to, that needs to be challenged. Sometimes we have to say what might not be popular. This was challenging some very popular people in certain segments of the church, but to say that we need to go to justice, we need a different way. We need to discomfort those comfortable people. And it may not lead to our success in this world, but again, our goals are heavenly. And so leave success to God. Let him be the measure of it, not us, not our analytics. It's something I go back to all the time, the prayer prophets of a future not our own. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you because it's quite long, but it's just a reminder that we are workers, not master builders, ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future not our own. That there are things that we get to do, but we will not see the results. And sometimes simply it is to be faithful, it is not to be successful. I know it's always encouraging when someone comes up to me and says, your video changed my life, I entered the church. And I'm very happy to hear that. But there are millions of other views that don't turn out that way. And tons of videos that show absolutely no results. Sometimes it's the patience and the perseverance to just keep going and saying, Lord, I give this to you. If you want to make it successful, that's fantastic. But ultimately, success is not up to me. One of my favorite lines from St. Francis. What a man is before God, that he is and nothing more. And something I go to bed praying every single night, because there are a lot of people that think I'm really great, and a lot of people think that I am just the worst. But ultimately, while feedback can be helpful from the right sources, God is the source that I want to focus on. Who are you, Lord, and who am I? And am I okay with you, what you have to say to me? Not what my analytics page has to say, not what comments have to say. Are my goals to please people here, or are my goals to please my God in heaven? Number 4, how do we do this? We be collaborative. It is important that we work together, not solitary. Think about how Jesus worked. He sent people out 2 by 2. He sent the disciples out together. Why did he do this? Of course, there are many reasons. 2 people has a veracity to the testimony. It's something a part of Jewish law. When you have 2 people offering witness, it makes the testimony stronger. Obviously, in their world, it gives a greater sense of protection. Going alone in some of these places would have been very dangerous. But I'd also like to argue, maybe most fundamentally, that a communal witness actually says more than words can. You might not be as efficient, but I do think that you can be more effective. That the witness you have in the way that you talk with your brothers, and the way that you laugh with your brothers or sisters, and the way that you make fun of each other, the way you get angry at each other. Clearly, we get angry at each other. But do we do so in the way that the world does, or might even our anger and disappointment be a witness? To say, even when we're frustrated, we're willing to work it out. Again, it goes back to that authenticity that I think that there's something about 2 that really matters. And something that Father Tito and I recognized a few years ago. We went on a baseball tour. We went to all 30 Major League Baseball stadiums in the United States, and we went to evangelize. We watched about 2 innings of every game, and otherwise we walked around the stadium. We talked with people, we prayed with people, we were available in a public space. Admittedly, of course, sometimes one of us had to go to the bathroom. One of us had to go get a drink, and we'd be separated. And what we found that was uncanny almost every single time is when we were alone, no one talked to us. And as soon as we came together, people talked to us. Because frankly, this is not the sort of person you're going to talk to alone, right? There's something weird about this. There's something very strange, that guy. But now when there's 2, it's a party. Now it's an event. Now it's a curiosity. And I think even more than that, you could say even without a habit, what do you do when you're alone? When you're just waiting for someone? Pull up my phone and look down, right? You're not very inviting. When you're together, you talk, you laugh, you show yourself as a relational person. There's something about 2 that is exponentially greater than 1 when it comes to witness. I think there's also not just an effectiveness, there's also a safety to this. We know the story of the emperor's new clothes. We know sometimes that you can grow so big and so important that people can't criticize you. We see this, unfortunately, in Catholic social media. We see this in Catholic non-social media. We see this all throughout our church. That sometimes people who don't have peers get themselves into trouble. And I know that that has happened to me quite a few times where I have worked on my own. I haven't had someone read a script with me. I haven't had an idea to bounce back with someone. And I've thought, I don't need any correction. I'm perfect. Not really. But you know how this happens. It doesn't happen as often when you have peers, when you have people who are willing to correct you, when you have that fraternity, that group of people. Because ultimately, we're working towards a we. It's not about me. It's not about my face. It's not about Father Casey Cole OFM, hopefully, and not always. Hopefully it's about the Franciscans or about the church or really about Jesus. And the more that we are a we, the less it is about me. But this is not always easy. I can say from experience that one of the reasons I have done a lot of things alone is because a lot of guys don't want to do something. And so if we want to protect those who are willing to go out and do something, to take that risk, then some of us in the room must be willing to support them, must be willing to say, I'll do one thing with you. I'll put myself out there a little bit. Because I've heard a lot of people criticize me who also were unwilling to do something with me. And so there's that mix, that give and take. And am I willing to put myself out to support a brother or sister is so critically important so that we really do it together. Finally, our how. Our last how. We need to speak to the periphery. It's important to remember that really the reason why we're doing this is to evangelize. Whether that's within or without the church, the goal is to get people farther than where they were. And this inevitably means that we must make sure that we go beyond our base. Our goal is to evangelize and to call to conversion. We must always remember that it is not to feed people who are already fed. It is not to comfort people who are already comforted. It is not to give something that pacifies. Our goal is growth. And so that means new audiences. That means stretching ourselves beyond the people who already know who we are and already like what we have to say. I've tried this by simply commenting on the culture with hope and positivity. I like the band Mumford Sons. I think there's a Christian message somewhere in there with some things there. And so I made a video finding how I can pray with them or how I can find a Christian message in them. And maybe I could reach to people that don't like Christianity, but they like Mumford and Sons. Can we do that with our movies, with our culture, to find something good and lift them out of it? Sometimes it's just picking topics that are interesting. This was a video I made answering questions about the vows. This was extremely popular. Just simple questions. No sex? Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's have a frank conversation. My sister, who has not been to church in probably 15 years, said that this came across her roommate's YouTube page. And she was shocked. She's like, I know that guy. But that should be our goal, to reach new audiences, to reach people that don't normally find us. And so we have to ask ourselves, am I doing the same old thing, reaching the same old people? Or am I taking some risks? Am I trying some new things? Am I talking to people in a way that they might find it and might understand it? One of my favorite ways of doing this, Father Tito helped me with this, was we went to VidCon and I used an idea that other people have done, which is you just ask people things on the street. But what I did was I gave them a quote and I said, is it Kim Kardashian or is it Pope Francis? Is it Pope Francis or Taylor Swift? Is it Hank Green or Pope Francis? And sometimes it was super easy, like just outrageously easy. And sometimes with Hank Green, they were actually really, really similar. And so for the outside ones, it was say, yeah, that might be a little vapid and this might be a little foundational. And people, one of my favorite comments was, this is a really creative way to get people to understand what Pope Francis actually says. It's sneaky. Then a new audience, that Taylor Swift video, that had 942,000 views 6 months ago. People saw that and they heard the Pope's words. And for the Hank Green one, this is someone that a lot of secular people like, a lot of atheists like, and he sounds a lot like Pope Francis. And maybe it's a way into those communities. But of course, we want to not just reach new audience, we do want to challenge our base. We do want to offer something that maybe they've never heard before. This year, I did something about Lent and I gave a history of Lent and fasting. And I kind of, not sue mean, but kind of challenge people like that. That's all you're doing? Really? You could do more. I know you could do more. And it wasn't from a place of judgment or condemnation, but an exhortation. Look at what our Christian brothers and sisters did 500 years ago. Look what the early Christians did. You could do more, right? You could do more. And so it's that inviting tone, that challenge to say, don't stay where you are. I believe in you. You can do better. Sometimes it's people who might be stuck and lost. Again, wasn't always a popular video, but this was, I think, a really important one. Challenge. Do you find yourself maybe having some implicit thoughts that maybe need to be challenged? One of my early videos. This was it's my second most watched video I've ever made, actually. And I forget the exact title of it, but basically it's the horrifying truth about the porn industry. And the reason I did this was because everyone talks about the effects that it has on the human watching it. But no one really does a video on the effect it has on the person making the video. And I talked about how people were abused, how they were sold, how it was a social justice issue. And the amount of people that commented and said, that's the perspective I needed to hear. When I thought I wasn't hurting anyone, it was really easy to do this. But now I see I'm a part of something really, really ugly. And so can we do that and just shift the perspective a little bit, show people something they haven't seen before, open their eyes to something where it's not saying you're wrong, but look, you could be even more right. And so we have these things, these hows to get us to our why. We want to make sure that we are authentic, that we are reconciling, that we are. It's number 3. No one took notes.
Heavenly goals.
Heavenly goals, yes. We are together. Yes. And what was the last one?
Challenging,
Challenging,
challenging base.
challenging the base. Yes. Reaching the periphery, going beyond. And so with that, what do we do? Well, in some ways, it doesn't even matter at this point. And that's the point. When we have that why, when we have that how, if you check off all those boxes and say, yes, I'm working together, and yes, I'm reaching to the periphery, and yes, I'm trying to be reconciling, well, then you could do any one of these things. Make YouTube videos, make Instagram reels, sketch comedy, explainers, blog posts, live Q&As, devotionals. Every single one of those could be fruitful and they could reach someone. But might you find a way to do it in a creative way? Might you find a way to blend styles? To say that I'm going to do a prank video with a how-to. I don't know, just coming up. No one's ever done that before. But could you find a way to say, I'm going to make a sketch comedy of the saints playing pranks on each other. And maybe it's a way of teaching the different personalities of the saints, and you're also entertaining. Not all ideas are great, but you know what I mean. Could we find a way to take things that are already done? Could we include all those values, and could we try something more? My exhortation to you would be that don't copy, but transform. Don't just repeat something that someone's already done. Do something slightly different. And I'll just stop on this one because I do want to cut off my time here. I think it's important that we be entertaining, but always remember to point to something deeper. It is critical that people click. It is critical that we find a way to make them intrigued. And so we do want a little creativity in the thumbnail and title. We do want to make something that makes people want to come back. But we don't want to be vapid. We don't want to be shallow. We don't want to compromise our values. Be entertaining, but always remember that it should be pointing to something more. There are 15 more slides. I'm sorry, we're not getting to it. Let's stop right there. Talked enough. I think there's probably lots of questions that we could get to, things that you might find interesting.